Thank you, Acting President. I rise to support E-Petition 382, asking the Government to review the Environment Effect Act 1978. The petitioners claim that the Environmental Effects Act, EES, which was legislated in the 1978, had only one review in over 40 years. This review in 2011 made 50 recommendations, not one of which has been enacted. In the past 40 years, we've seen Melbourne's population grow over this time from 2.8 million to over 5 million people. To accommodate these extra people, along with the additional infrastructure associated with this increase, a huge demand's been placed on our environment, and now we're facing an extreme climate crisis combined with mass extinction, species extinction. Victoria is the most cleared state in Australia, and over 700 of our native animals are facing extinction. Our canopy trees are in serious decline, and the suburbs are facing heat island effects, decreasing open space and overdevelopment. Wildlife corridors are being decimated, and native fauna and flora are disappearing at an accelerated rate. We need an act to protect Victoria's environment for its people, plants and animals. We need an act which can assess the current situation as well as the full long-term cumulative effects of our building projects and monitor our resource depletion. The Environment Effects Act, as it stands, is failing us. It's a farce. It's showing its age and clearly failing the environment. Jeff Ralphs, Principal Advisor for Impact Assessment at DWELP, calls it a paradox. He says it was underpinned by a traditional and arguably out-of-date legislation, open to interpretation and flexible approaches to impact assessment being adapted to suit the circumstances. He goes on to say, reviews identified a need for further legislative hooks and obligations to help ensure the system remains defensible, robust and transparent. One of the main flaws is that when an EES is ordered, the entire investigation is prepared by the developer or applicant. A prime example of this was Western Port Gas Project, proposed by AGL with the EES process run by AGL. How is it possible for AGL to do an impartial evaluation as they were banking on getting approval for the project? It's madness. If this isn't the biggest conflict of interest, then I don't know what is. How could anyone rely on the applicant who's fighting for their project to be approved to give an honest and fair dinkum evidence-based evaluation of how their project will damage the environment? There must be proper oversight of this. A clear failing of the EES process was also evident in the Western Highway duplication project, where incorrect identification of Indigenous sacred trees resulted in the Minister approving the road on flawed and invalid environmental data. According to The Age, in 2021, in April 2021, Vic Roads also admitted it had severely underestimated the number of large old trees it would cut down for the road, claiming in the EES it would be fewer than 221, when in fact it was 885. This was also the case for the North East Link project, where the EES underestimated the tree reduction by 80%. The EES also overlooks the habitat of threatened species that are protected by federal government legislation. An example of this was the Mordialloc Freeway extension, which has all but decimated the critically endangered Australasian bittern. The Act that was written 43 years ago is clearly not meeting today's challenges and needs to be updated, so I support the residents' E-Petition. The EES requirement these days does not meet the community's need for real environmental protection. It fails on biodiversity and ignores climate changes. I urge the government to consider reviewing this Act as a matter of urgency.